Folks. Good morning and welcome to everyone to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates on this December 10, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Chair Smith. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Shull.
Here.
Chair Smith.
Here. Gary, what's the first item?
These are issues and updates for today. Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Water Environment Services Board.
This is request for consent agenda for Water Environment Services. Item 1, approval of a contract with Braun Construction for the Upper Kellogg capital improvements. Total contract value is $1,678,330 for 2 years. Funding is through county-approved American Rescue Plan Act funds. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, directors. This is the same project that we talked about last week, where we reappropriated ARPA funds between two projects. We're actually constructing both of those. It's a linear project. We're doing them both at the same time. It'll reduce flooding, improve stream habitat, all manner of good things. We're restoring about 1,000 feet of stream, replacing or upsizing about 600 feet of storm pipe, replacing undersized culverts with box culverts and a bridge. And we expect to do construction in the summer.
Is this to do with the Laura Avenue project we talked about last week?
This is Thiessen Road
Oh, Thiessen, got it.
south to Clackamas.
Okay, thank you.
Along Aldercrest.
Commissioner Savas.
Forgot what that federal process is, but we had that one old piece of infrastructure on someone's property that had to go through a federal process that went under Thiessen Road. Was that finalized, resolved?
I think that's a DTD project under Thiessen.
Okay, I thought it was part and parcel of this as well.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Dan Johnson, do you know the answer to that?
I see Dan in the back, but I thought that part of that restriction was that I won't say architecture, but it was like a brick passageway that was undersized in order to get the flow through there, that it needed to be resolved. And it was is it a 108 process, or I forgot what that was, that you said, or someone said that we have a delay.
Right, that's Thiessen.
Yeah, I know it's Thiessen and Eldercrest Crossing, but I thought it was under this, it was part of this project.
No,
from
that
a
was
capacity standpoint.
That was originally a separate ARPA project that DTD was doing, but because of the long federal process, they reallocated the funds. They're still doing, I'll let Dan speak to that. Yes.
Yeah, we're actually talking to you about that today through a resolution of necessity to revise it. We're pushing it forward, though, funding and movement on the project.
So we got past the federal process?
Yeah, we're moving through the federal process. The federal process, I'll have to do some more research and get back to you, but fundamentally, we have to do a revision to the resolution of necessity because some of the environmental permitting required adjustments to some of the design. So I'll be talking to you about that here in 1 second.
Okay. Well, they're linked because it's the same water. That's my point. It's the same amount of water, so I wouldn't want to have one bottleneck somewhere where it starts stacking up water on Aldercrest because we didn't get the passageway under Thiessen resolved. That will just shift the problem somewhere else. So that's why I think they're intrinsically tied to one another.
Thank you. Any other questions? See no objections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the Water Environment Services Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners. Gary.
Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. The Sheriff's Office item, at the request of Sheriff, we're pulling until next week, so those will come back next week, but not today. Next, Finance. Item 1, approval of a public improvement contract with Johnson Controls for heating, venting, and air conditioning system controls at the Clackamas County Stabilization Center. Contract value is $164,228 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Administrative Services. No county general funds are involved. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. Jeff Jorgensen, Facilities Division Director. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. Today we have a contract requested with Johnson Controls. This is to put in electronic thermostat. Right now, this building that we are remodeling for H3S has an independent thermostat system. So this is for heating and controlling. What this will do, this replacement will tie it into the county systems. We've done this at multiple structures already. You may be familiar with that. And so this is a one-time fee, and we're actually pretty pleased with the bid that we got in at $164,000 for this. So we request your approval.
And this is for Clackamas Village
This is for the 23-hour
Stabilization Center.
Yes.
I just saw Clapper. Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, tourism. Item 1, approval of a lease amendment with the Hoodland Senior Center for county-owned property as 65000 East Highway 26 in Welches. The amendment value is $24 for 2 years. Total lease value is $168 for 14 years. Yes, that dollar is correct. Funding is through the Hoodland Senior Center. No county general funds are involved. Sarah Ekman, Assistant Director of Transportation and Development and Interim Director of Tourism. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Yes, I'm here today as Administrator Schmidt described. So our Office of Tourism owns a piece of property which is occupied and used by the Hoodland Senior Center. It was originally purchased with transient lodging taxes, which is why tourism owns it. It was originally used as a visitor center and then transitioned to the Hoodland Senior Center 12 years ago. So we have an active lease with them, and incorporated into that lease was 2 optional 2-year extensions to it. So this document before you today is to exercise the first of those 2 2-year extensions, which would carry forward the terms from the lease that we have.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, good morning. Could you remind the board about the maintenance arrangements on that building? Are we responsible for it?
We do conduct some of that maintenance, and I can verify and follow up with you. I know that the preventive maintenance for the building is incorporated into what we receive from facilities management.
Okay.
And then there are pieces that the Hoodland Senior Center facilitates, I believe, but I can confirm that for
Okay,
you.
thank
I know
you.
that we do the preventive maintenance.
Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a personal services contract with Sunstone Way for consultation, shelter operations, and case management services. Total contract value is $1,569,587.36 for 7 months. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Clackamas Village is a new transitional shelter community that will serve 24 single homeless adults with private, safe living spaces and essential services, positioning them to transition from homelessness to stable housing. They were selected through our RFP process. Sunstone Way is a trusted local nonprofit with a proven track record of delivering comprehensive services to vulnerable populations in the metro region. Their expertise will drive the success of Clackamas Village in ensuring strategic planning for the site design, staffing, and case management that meets residents' needs while embedding trauma-informed care to every aspect of the operation.
Questions or comments?
So is this for the Clackamas Village?
Yes.
Okay. How are we doing on that?
In terms of the overall build,
Now, I saw the update in an email. I was a little bit stunned that it went from a January completion to several months out.
April.
yeah, let me bring up Adam. He's been working that issue for us.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So, Commissioner Savas, we share a little bit of frustration about the delay from an opening date around January to closer to April. And the cause for that is related to, turns out there's a lot of river rock on that site. Once they started doing the grading and started cutting for the foundations that the modular buildings will be set on, they uncovered a lot of river rock there. And it involved a lot more excavation than we had anticipated, and then backfill, because they had to clear the river rock out. You know, there were boulders up to 18 inches, and so every time the backhoe or the graders went to level the terrain, they hit that rock, they kind of have to start from scratch to create a level surface. So that took some time to work through that. And then once they got the site level, there was, they started cutting for the foundation, specifically the individual sites, and then there was question about the stability of that river rock soil to actually put a foundation on. So it was determined that it didn't provide the level of stability that we needed, and so they had to do further excavation and then backfill with crushed rock to create a stable surface as far as the geotechnical assessment. So it's a little bit of unforeseen site conditions that put us back a couple of months.
Yeah, when was that realized?
It's been evolving over the last couple of months. Like initially, we thought we had the level surface that we needed, and that we were gonna make the original deadline because the project, if you recall, I think we've described this to you before. We were doing the site prep work as the modulars were being built, right? So the modulars are being built off-site, and Blazer Industries, our modular builder, has been cruising. And so we thought, okay, even though we've had this trouble with the site conditions, we can still marry those two things together and set in maybe December or so, and then do the final work on ADA ramps, et cetera, after we get them set. But it was probably late October, early November when it became clear that we were going to have to do some additional work, and that timing wasn't going to work out.
Okay. Well, just have some experience with the Veterans Village, which is the neighboring parcel. And I know we're going to underground probably the stormwater like we did before. I don't know if we're doing electrical as well.
Yep.
So, I drive by that site quite frequently, actually. I mean, not just for that, but there's other things going on in the area. Encampments and so forth. I haven't talked to you about that, but getting complaints. But anyhow, so I'm out there, and it doesn't seem like much has happened, but I certainly was stunned to see what I saw, and what appears to be a lack of progress. It looks like a dirt field.
So all the underground is done. Like that was all done as part of the excavation. They've created all the stormwater stuff. So there has been a ton of site work actually done. It was this piece around final grading of the site and cutting for the foundations that caused the slowdown. But otherwise, we were on track.
Okay. All right. I'll look for your updates.
Okay, thank you.
So this project, is it being built with SHS dollars?
It is, Chair. Yeah,
And we have enough to finish it?
we do.
What about programming for the years to come? Is it in jeopardy of not have the right funding for the programming in the event that the tax decrease from Metro goes through?
Well, the project has been in the works for a number of years, and so there's a line item in our current budget to fund the ongoing operations of this site. We do know that we're going to have to make some hard choices over the next couple of years. I think we've made a capital investment in this site. We have limited shelter infrastructure. You know that, right? We've talked about building a balanced system. And so I think the staff recommendation would be we need to preserve the shelter infrastructure that we have, including this future Clackamas Village, including the stabilization center that's going to be coming online. We need to protect those ongoing investments, given we're making capital investments in those facilities, and make adjustments elsewhere to accommodate the reductions.
So when you present that budget to us next week, you will be discussing that?
Yeah. Yep.
It's not a fun place to be in. Thank you. Other further questions? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Just Compassion of East Washington County for case management services to residents at Clackamas Apartments. Total contract value is $371,421.25 for 7 months. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Clackamas Apartments is an existing housing authority property that's home to high-needs residents with severe and persistent mental illness. Like many other housing programs supported by federal vouchers, Clackamas Apartments has lacked the level of supportive services needed to adequately support residents. Here we are using Supportive Housing Services funding to provide those supportive services that residents have long needed, leveraged opportunities like this have been an important strategy where we've assessed historical system gaps and used modest investments of SHS to close those gaps and help people successfully maintain stable housing. The Supportive Housing Case Management Program was developed to assist households that have secured permanent housing and have expressed the need for supportive services to improve housing stability. This contract is to achieve this objective. And this goes to the board's concern of not just housing folks, but having those wraparound services and having the services they need to keep them housed. And so this is an example of how we're pulling two different systems together, our HAC, or Housing Authority programming, with our Supportive Housing Services funds to make this, create the continuum of services we need.
I see there's a nonprofit called Just Compassion. Maybe it was here and I never noticed it before. Is this a fairly new nonprofit?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
After you, Rod. They're Just Compassion of Washington County.
I see.
So they're new to Clackamas County, but they're not new to our continuum of care.
I just didn't recognize that name, which is fine, thank you. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 3, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Wilsonville for emergency shelter, motel vouchers, automobile repair, and financial literacy education. Total agreement value is $507,100 for 18 months. Funding is through Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Okay, so this is a first of a series of city-led initiatives, intergovernmental agreements with the city of Wilsonville. The rest of the agreements will be presented to you in future meetings. In working to improve coordination and collaboration, increased geographical distribution of services, and support local leaders in tailoring approaches to addressing housing insecurity and homelessness that best suit their communities, the BCC approved the release of a notice of funding opportunity in December of 2023 for city-led homeless initiatives. The NOFA was intended to spur creativity and innovation at the city level, empowering local leaders to supplement the often highly effective but under-resourced local efforts to meet the needs of very low-income households in their cities. Allowable initiative categories were very broad and included outreach and engagement, emergency shelter and navigation, housing services, health and wellness, advocacy, and employment and benefits. The board approved staff funding recommendations in April 2024, including this proposal from the City of Wilsonville.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this per se, but I have a comment overall with regard to all the activity and discussions that are taking place regarding SHS dollars and our future. And knowing that the recent forecast or the recent disbursement is $50 million less, that's not a result of any discussions, that's just a result of economics, I'm gathering. I'd like to get further details into what sector of those revenues were hurt, whether it was the business side or the personal income side or whatever it may be. But if that's a indication of what's to come, then all it does is exacerbate our concerns that we already have. And I've been hearing I got an earful the other day from one of the mayors, really upset, not with us, but with Metro, with this whole thing. And I have another conversation being scheduled for sometime today as well, on a phone call, another upset mayor. And I haven't talked to the mayor of Wilsonville, but as we're letting out these contracts, my concern, I was taught this a long time ago by some of my previous colleagues on this commission who were very compassionate about their concern about essentially trying to building bridges or actually the fiscal cliffs, right? And I'm concerned about the fiscal cliffs we're creating. And then the narrative might be, if we don't have enough funding to continue these things, it could be politically used as we're cutting their funding, right? And it's all on us, as opposed to we're not the cause of this, if indeed what Metro does and it further cuts our SHS funding, we're going to be displacing people right out on the street. And we're going to be blamed for it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner West.
So I like this. I think we've been really intentional about this, that the principle that the government closest to you impacts the community the most. And then in a recovery-oriented system of care, you're bringing in all your stakeholders to have some skin in the game to solve the crisis. Clackamas County alone is not going to do it. And we share borders with 2 other large counties and some smaller counties to our north and to our east. And so how are we going to figure out as a group to get to tackle this issue and get ahead of it? So this ties into that direct principle of like, Lake Oswego is different than Wilsonville. Wilsonville is different than West Linn, even though they're close to proximity and there's similarities, but the needs, concerns, the geography, things that create disparate outcomes are all different in every individual community. And trying to get funds directly to the source in a creative way. We're the only county that did this. This was our own bright idea, and I think that there's a lot of appeal to it, and a lot of people have kind of touted this as a really smart use of funds. I had a nice conversation with Joe Buck, the mayor of Lake Oswego, just the other day at the C4 dinner, and even for Lake Oswego, they're really excited to be part of the solution and understand the need that cities, counties, and all other stakeholders have to work on this together. I'm interested to see how this plays out in my own community in Wilsonville, and I appreciate their constant efforts to be good partners in this. And they really have, all these cities really have tried to step up with us and are very curious about how we're doing things in Clackamas County and how they can be supportive on this issue. And so, I'm excited that this is moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out and how it could be a resource to the overall area. So, yeah, thank you for helping implement this.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. This item includes emergency shelter, motel vouchers, financial literacy, and automobile repair. My question is, does a supportive housing services measure agreement we have allow for expending SHS dollars on automobile repair?
Yeah, Commissioner, great question. This fits into a category. So almost all of our programs utilize what we call flex funds. And flex funds are intended to, we plug them in kind of in the moment to meet the needs of a household, an issue that is at risk of destabilizing their housing. So let's say you have an extremely low-income household, maybe single parent, couple of children, they're hanging on by a thread, and their car breaks down, and modest $200, $300, $500 is the difference between them being able to get to work and maintain their housing, or risking losing their job and losing their housing. So we utilize flex funds to step in. Of course, we check their eligibility requirements in terms of that lack of stability that they're facing, but then we do use those flex funds to step in and say, all right, this is a good use of our community resources to help you maintain your stable housing.
Okay. I'd be interested to know who decides at what level or what cost automobile repair is a cutoff on that. And like Commissioner Savas mentioned, I'm curious about, this is Wilsonville, do we have other cities who would like to receive this funding from SHS dollars for similar needs? And if so, are you looking at that budget you have for SHS dollars expenditure to make sure that, this is all being covered?
So the answer is yes, and I'll be bringing those to you possibly next week, some additional city-led initiatives. And remember, the city-led initiatives were one-time funding. So that's to our concern about what's happening in the future. The cities know that this was a one-time investment. Now, I'm sure, like any other city or nonprofit, they are hoping that there would be a future in this, but we're all waiting to see, what's going to happen with Metro. So we have been upfront, one-time funding. This is to get you to leverage whatever you've got going to be an incentive, catalyst for cities to get involved, all that. So you've done that, and I think all the cities actually applied, and I'll be bringing those contracts before you in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner, I'll just add some nuance for Wilsonville. So, right, this was about tailoring investments to meet the specific needs of a community. So Rod's right. All 11 cities that submitted proposals received something from us. We didn't fund everything for everyone, but we did fund something for everyone. That was a priority for us. With regard to Wilsonville, we met with them maybe 18 months ago, could be 2 years ago now, and the meeting was with the city manager and a couple of their local nonprofits that are really resourceful agencies. And what we learned was they were making a little go a long ways in helping households in Wilsonville. And so what this proposal is it's leveraging that existing community capacity, those nonprofits, to make some really modest investments to help them stretch further. So this was really tailored to the specific capacity in Wilsonville and what they felt like they needed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Next, Transportation and Development, item 1, approval of a revised resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of right-of-way easements and fee property and authorizing good faith negotiations and, if necessary, condemnation actions for the Thiessen Road Culvert Replacement and Kellogg Creek Restoration Project. Total project value is $1,551,635. Funding is through county-approved American Rescue Plan Act funds and county road funds. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, we spoke briefly about this. Essentially, we are here with a revised resolution of necessity. These are actions that you take for any capital project. I want to make sure we're clear with you and the public maybe watching. These do not authorize condemnation. They authorize good faith negotiations and allow our right-of-way staff to go out and start negotiating with these property owners to secure property for the project. If there is any condemnation, we bring that before you, and the board would direct us to move forward or not with that action at a future date. Essentially, this project is to replace an undersized culvert on Thiessen Road, crosses Kellogg Creek. Currently, it's about a 6-foot diameter round culvert that creates backwater, essentially not allowing conveyance. The idea is to replace this with a 16-foot wide and 6-foot tall culvert. The wider archway will allow for more natural movement of the water to go through the area. This is a project in which we have to, the reason we're here for the revisions are that we went through some environmental permitting, and that permitting required some redesign and some alterations. So we're here to seek the board's support on this revised resolution.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Item 2, approval of a public improvement contract with Western Construction for the El Camino Way Stormwater Improvements Project. Total contract value is $689,577 for 18 months. Funding is through county-approved American Rescue Plan Act funds. No county general funds are involved.
This is a specific project the board authorized for the use of ARPA funds towards. Essentially, the El Camino Way area near Thiessen Road experiences heavy flooding, and this project will provide stormwater improvements to provide capacity to meet a 10-year storm event on El Camino Way. Essentially, the project entails installing 9 manholes, 2 catch basins, connecting into 5 existing structures, and installing about 1,400 linear feet of new stormwater conveyance pipe to deal with the localized flooding that's in the area. I'd be happy to, I should probably, the project was advertised in accordance with ORS and LCRB rules on September 18th, 2024. Bids were opened on October 9th, 2024. There were 12 bidders in this project.
Wow.
Upon review of the bid proposals, contracting with Western Construction LLC was determined to be in the best interest of the county based on the evaluation criteria.
Great. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a public improvement contract with KNL Industries for the Canby Markham Highway Paving Project. Total contract value is $1,180,966 for 1 year. Funding is through county-approved American Rescue Plan Act funds and County House Bill 2017 program funds. No county general funds are involved.
Just first to clarify, Canby Markham Highway is not an ODOT road. It is our road. It is a major arterial. And essentially, this is to resurface about 2.99 miles of that roadway. Essentially, the contract includes, but is not limited to, placing about 6,700 tons of asphalt, 7,000 square yards of cold plain pavement removal, completing pavement repairs, guardrail modification, pavement markers, striping, and obviously work zone, temporary work zone controls, et cetera. It's a part of our annual scheduled payment package we put forward to the board through approval through our budget process every year.
So this is a section of road that we have not done any work on in a long time?
Correct.
Because I know we have done some work on other parts of that road,
Correct.
substantial work.
Correct.
Wasn't that bridges and left turn lane safety,
Correct.
but no paving? What part of the road, 3-mile stretch, is this? Do you know? It's quite a long road.
It's, I have to find an exact section for you.
It says between Hines Road and
It's between-
and 211.
Yeah, correct.
I was
between
looking for that.
Hines,
Thanks,
yeah.
Paul. I couldn't see it. Hines Road. Okay. That's a pretty good stretch.
It is, and actually, we talked about the cost of doing these projects in the rural area. They're cheaper because we don't have the ADA improvements associated with it, but it's still, you're looking at $1.1 million to do this. It is a pretty significant improvement.
Right. I'm glad you're doing it. Thank you. Seeing no objections.
All right, all these consent agenda items will be on this Thursday's business meeting for your action, except for the sheriff's items, which will be pulled until next week. Dan, why don't you stay, Dan? Dan. All right, we're going to jump ahead, since Dan was already at the table. 2018 Code Enforcement Violation Priorities and Enforced Priorities. And we'll watch Dan as he walks back to the table. Okay, sorry, Dan. There's a memo in your packet, and Dan Johnson will present.
Hey, Chair Smith, Commissioners, we are here just to have a brief discussion with you about code enforcement priorities. So again, as the public is watching, to support safe communities for all residents of Clackamas County, the Department of Transportation and Development operates a code enforcement program to resolve and enforce violations of statutes or ordinance related to public health, safety, welfare, business activities, building standards, land use, and neighborhood livability. Back in 2001 and 2002, the board established a code enforcement violation priority list, because essentially there was a necessity based off the current caseload and workload that program was facing. There was a necessity to establish priorities around that to allow those to align more appropriately and viably in regards to the number of cases and the cases and the codes that we enforce and the staffing levels that we have. In 2018, the building official, our building official and DTD staff worked with County Council to incorporate some changes in the priority list and to edit the list for clarity, okay? And keep in mind the fact that this list, the world changes. 2001, 2002, a lot had changed in regards to codes, approved uses, et cetera. I'll just name a couple, one of which is we added some enforcement language around graffiti and the necessity to make that a high priority violation and to go after those immediately. And then secondly, if you recall, there were some pretty significant changes around the authorization and legalization of marijuana. And so the board's desires around that were incorporated within this list. We are working actively and plan to have a discussion with the Board of County Commissioners in the coming year about the priority list, to revisit that and see what that looks like and see if there are some changes the board would like to make. During this research, we had worked closely with our code enforcement staff and county council because we wanted to go back and look and see when and how the board had taken action on this list. And the list before you today is the list that we've been enforcing since 2018. That research, we couldn't find anywhere where the board had really codified that. And so basically, we are here just as a formality to have the board act on the list. Keep in mind, this is the list we've been enforcing since 2018. There's no changes to it since that 2018 clarification. But we felt it was important to have the board codify the list if there were any questions that are raised between now and the discussion we have with the board in the upcoming year. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I have Cheryl Bell and Michelle Amen from our Building Codes and Code Enforcement Department in the back. If you have some specific questions that I can't answer, we'd be glad to answer any that you may have.
Thank you for that, bringing this forward. Commissioners, are there any questions today?
Well, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Savas.
Move to affirm the 2018 code enforcement priorities and enforceable priorities.
Second that.
Commissioner Savas has moved we affirm the 2018 code enforcement priorities and enforceable priorities. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Schultz.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Tumwata Village Grant Application Letter of Support. Tony Holowetsky, Director of Public and Government Affairs, will present.
Morning, Commissioners. Tonya Holowetsky, PGA Director. We received a request from the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde for a support letter from the Board of County Commissioners for a RAISE grant that will help them design and fund improvements at Tumwata Village in Oregon City. RAISE grant stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. And they're applying for a $9.9 million grant in fiscal year 2025 to continue improvements for phase 2 of their project, primarily road-related improvements. No supporting funds are being requested from Clackamas County for this application, and we are also not presently planning to apply for a RAISE grant in fiscal year 2025. So PGA is recommending that the BCC support the support letter or submit a support letter to Grand Ronde for their 2025 RAISE grant application, and that letter was in your packet.
Thank you very much. This letter came out of a meeting that I believe Commissioner Schrader and I attended together. I'm not sure if you were there, about a year ago, on a review of the visioning for the old mill site by the Grand Ronde. And it was quite impressive, and architectural drawings and what it's going to look like for the future. And at that time, I said, if you need help with applying to the federal government and need a letter of support, we'd be happy to do that. And so I offered, and here it is. And Commissioners, just as FYI, that this letter will go out in support of the Grand Ronde, important economic vitality construction project, to the downtown core area and beyond. And any questions or comments? Thank you.
Motion, please, to approve.
I will accept the motion. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I move to approve the support letter for the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde for the FY 2025 Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Stability and Equity RAISE grant.
I'll second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we approve the letter to the federal government for a 2025 Rebuilding America Infrastructure RAISE grant for Tumwata Village, and Commissioner West has seconded the motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next, Gary.
Next, Supportive Housing Services, Counter-Proposal Framework and General Update. Emily Klepper, Senior Policy Advisor in the Board of County Commissioners Office, and Adam Brown, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services, will give you a general update and have a discussion with you. Go ahead, please.
Welcome, and please introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Emily Klepper, Senior Policy Advisor.
Good morning again. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services.
Okay, so as you know, Metro has convened another stakeholder table to talk about the SHS reform in further detail. Metro shared 2 financial scenarios at the end of November looking at setting a minimum county allocation. Each county was asked to consider the scenarios and bring the impacts and priorities back to this table. Adam presented first to this board on November 26th. And then under board direction, we went back to the stakeholder table and presented on Tuesday. So that was last week. During that discussion, staff asked Metro if they would consider a counter proposal to what they had submitted to the
By
county.
the way, it was Clackamas County staff that asked Metro, correct?
That's correct.
I want to be very clear. Thank you.
Yes, I did that. I'll own it. And then staff from all 3 counties, Metro agreed to consider a counter proposal. Since then, staff from all 3 counties have kind of leaned into that work and are
looking at the principles of the reform and trying to prepare something pretty quickly. So I don't have all the specifics that I can share with you, but I certainly have the framework, which addresses some of the details of Metro's reform. So that's the proposed tax cut, base allocation for the counties, governance, and we're looking at affordable housing investments and the criteria around that. So the board established priorities with Adam in that discussion, looking at how we preserve local decision-making, balancing the system, making intentional changes. That's the guiding principles we're using as we approach the counterproposal work. There's 2 more meetings that are left. This afternoon, there's one where the cities are going to talk about their investments, what their priorities are, and apparently Metro did some additional polling in November. I did not know about that, but they're going to share those results. And then we have one more meeting after that next week where the Metro, or this table, will consider the counterproposal. So we're on a very tight timeline here.
We are. So one of the items in the counterproposal would be a softer glide path for the tax money, correct?
Yes.
And what would you like to see, Adam?
No less than 3 years as we transition from this phase of, we've been building these programs. We're going to have to be really intentional so that we're not destabilizing, creating the same kind of instability that we're trying to solve for with this funding. So I think a 3-year timeline probably is our minimum.
Also, an item that's been very near and dear to my heart is the governance model and keeping the governance and the spending of dollars within the county, because the county knows best how to provide services. Would you like to address that?
Well, I'll just say we think we've done a pretty good job building these programs, Chair. And that's been with your support. It's been doing things like leaning in with our cities, leaning in with our service providers, trying to meet the unique needs of Clackamas County, including our rural communities. We think we need to preserve our agency to make decisions about what's best for Clackamas County. We certainly are okay with high-level regional goals that we all can work towards, and doing what we can in furtherance of those regional goals. But we need discretion here to meet the needs of Clackamas County in the way Clackamas County knows best.
I just got a text message from Willamette Week with the results of the poll that you talked about. And the headline says, polling for a revamped Metro homeless tax measure shows a narrow path to victory. So that tells me that it's not a sure deal this is going to pass, because your polling is going to have to come in at way higher than a 51% in order for it to pass, because in here it says, and I just glanced.
I got it right here.
Thank you, Ben, and you can address this for me, please. Shows that there's still a need, and there's been progress, and people notice the progress, is what I'm assuming this was. Okay, I'll let you talk about that. And the governance model is a sticky wicket. And with the tri-chairs meeting that we're continuing to have, we are just entrenched in the governance model remain with the counties. And the 2 large committees, which were so cumbersome, did not work. And at least Metro and Metro President realized that and is trying to make adjustments to that. And I think that's important with other things. Commissioner West, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think it's clear. So Willamette Weekly, our friend Nigel at Willamette Weekly did a public records request, got all of the polling data, has come out with an article, I think today. And the polling firm really made it clear that the electorate is quite skeptical about this, and it is, if there's a pathway, it's quite narrow. There's nowhere near the benchmarks to actually get something over the finish line right now. So I'm going to, and this quote is in the article, just 2 of the 5 support the housing services program in its current form, with large groups skeptical that it is being implemented as described. The pollster at FM3 Research wrote in a December 4th memo, the persistence of homelessness as a top-ranking concern in the region underscores voters' sense that little progress has been made on this issue. So I think the voters in the Tri-County area share the concerns that this board has been saying from this dais, that you, Adam, and your team have been making clear, and Emily, in our public presentations about this. The truth is that one county to the north is wildly underperforming in a way that is impacting the rest of us and the credibility with the voters and with the public. I thought that I would never be so public about supporting an actual tax that I also did not vote for. I personally believe that there should not be a reduction, that we have to prove the concept to the voters. We have to say we are good stewards and we are doing the work and we're making headway. But right now, there's not an accountability to counties, appropriate accountability to counties that are underperforming. And then what happens is we begin to make big plans, plan for the future, and begin to do the work we are tasked to do. We feel like, at least I do, and as a commissioner, that the rug is being pulled out from under us as we just get started with no assurances that the plans that we have made will actually be maintained. Chair Smith is correct that there is real issues with the governing model. Part of the governing model includes having a group called Here Together at the table. Here Together is basically a grifting lobbying firm that is supposedly the voice for a large number of the entities that receive SHS funds that provide services. We don't even know how these services are overall performing. We don't know where these tax dollars are going. We don't know if this is some new NGO industrial complex. And a lot of the people that are getting these funds have to be held accountable for how those funds are being used. For the voters to trust us to ask for a tax increase, and that is what it is. They may reduce the rate, but if you pay it for over 20 years, you're paying a lot more money than you originally thought you were going to pay. So the voters have every right to be skeptical, and we have not proven the concept metro-wide. I continue to have these same concerns. I had a long conversation, multiple conversations with one particular metro councilor regarding this. There's still some disagreement on what this governing model should look like. That of Clackamas County will actually see a loss in these revenues or tax dollars, or if they seem to think we can do without it, and that I just think they may not fully, Adam, we spoke to this, I don't think they fully understand how local governing budgeting processes work and how we set these money aside. And I think there's some misunderstanding around that. I think that we have to continue to push and to fight and to educate the public, not only on the good things that we're doing at Clackamas, but this is really detrimental, not only to the people that need these services, but to us being able to plan long-term into the future, and to get and to continue to move forward. We just are now kind of getting our wind behind us, and Metro's wanting to come in and muddle things up. And I think primarily this is also due to the lack of competent governance out of Multnomah County.
And that's exactly what we were told on this. We may be in year 3, but it's only operationally year 2 because it took a year to collect the taxes. As I keep reminding people, we are technically yes in year 3, but not operationally. And I'm going to read, before I go to Paul, I'm going to read just in there the bad news. The number of tents and homeless camps across the region suggests that results are less than the public wants. Pollsters found support is weak for simply extending the duration of the tax without making further changes. And therein is the rub. How do you communicate by the time Metro wants this vote to come up in May that, oh, we've made these changes and things are going well and we're going to be making more changes when we've only had 2 years of operation with this? The public is very skeptical, and I don't blame them. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated, so I apologize. I don't want to make anyone in this room think I'm upset with them, but I was bombarded yesterday, bombarded last week by mayors, city councilors, folks, conversations with Metro councilors, conversations with county commissioners of other counties, a lot of upset. And I thought that we were, I found myself in a situation where I couldn't really answer the questions. And the questions were, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. I didn't know that we were somewhat negotiating. It seems like we're negotiating, but we never set any criteria. This board never set any criteria. We were told, you came to us last time, I believe, and the message was that Metro wants us to provide cut scenarios. And we said, no. You provide them with needs, what our needs are, not with some compromise in between. So I'm being asked last week and yesterday, what are you doing? And I don't know. And it seems that we're the governing body and you guys are all working for us. What are we doing? And how do I respond to those folks? Some of them being from Clackamas County. And the rest of my afternoon is going to be conversations along that line. I don't know. And I'm struggling to figure out a counterproposal based on what? What criteria? Who set the criteria, right? And then to find out on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, that the latest disbursement is $50 million short, right? There's no math. And I mean, look, I will say one thing. I know that most of the conversation, people are really upset and primarily upset with Metro, along with the questions of what are we doing and you know, what's your thoughts? And I said, I didn't know that we're somewhat, so all to say, I mean, I don't think anyone can get us, there's so much passion around this and upset that I don't think not one paragraph or statement doesn't go without some large volume increasing, swear words. That's how upset people are, right? It's that bad. And so I'm asking right now, on what basis or what criteria are we talking about? We didn't set any, did we?
So, Commissioner, let me take a shot here at trying to articulate how we've shown up as staff in these meetings. So, you know, we've tried to show up in good faith with a belief that we're best off when we try to work together and figure out how do we make modest changes within the system that we have to help achieve our long-term goals, right? We've tried to show up like, hey, we've got an IGA, we've got an SHS framework. We've been working really hard over the last few years to build these programs. There are going to be things we did well, and there's going to be things we can improve on. Okay, so let's talk about how do we tune the dials together to achieve the long-term outcomes that we want. That's been our sort of consistent refrain.
Who's we?
Well, it's me and Emily in large part have been there in those meetings. We've given the board a number of briefings. We haven't set priorities for quote unquote negotiation. What we've done is fielded the things Metro is considering and tried to articulate the impact of those things on us and why we think we need to be measured and restrained and thoughtful in any changes that we make because we want them to know the impacts of those things. So we've largely been the recipients of things they're considering and tried to help them understand the impacts and potential options for how we can, listening for what the goal is, and then talking about how that fits within our system and what we think we could do to help meet shared goals. But I wouldn't say we've been, quote unquote, negotiating with some county agenda that hasn't been widely discussed.
Well, a counterproposal is those aren't my words, those are yours, right? And a glide path, 3-year glide path, those are your words, not ours. That's not direction from us. I think it starts here.
Yeah.
And I think we took a hard line the last time and said, no, we're not going to provide cut scenarios. We're going to we'll tell them what our needs are. That's quite different than a glide path to less. Unless you got demonstrate that the needs are less.
And Commissioner, when we went before them last week, we did not share what Clackamas County would cut. What we did was orient them to our current system, tell them about the hard choices that we would be faced with as a community if they did move forward with this, and talk about what we need to preserve the system that we've built and go farther in continuing to close gaps.
There's at the very minimum, a very basic mathematical exercise here, right? And everyone's asking that question. And so at the end of the day, we're talking millions and millions, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars for a purpose, right? And everyone's asking, smart people. I mean, people are in elected office. There's a lot of smart people out there, mayors, city councilors, county commissioners saying, what are the needs and how did we, or I don't want to get thrown in that mess, right? Is a bad reflection on us, right? But so again, pointing the finger back at, or not the finger, but this initiative is being proposed by Metro. We know that. but on what mathematical basis are making their proposals, right? And there isn't any math that we've seen or has been demonstrated that is logical, that has any logical path. There's no relationship to expenses and costs, which are not going down, they're going up, right? This is haphazard at best. So I thought we were just literally going to be out of the room and not discussing that and trying to work with our other partners in coming with, some strategy on how to address this, right?
We are.
Well, when? When do we set the criteria for that?
Look, Paul,
Because there isn't any.
I understand that. So what has happened is Metro keeps giving these scenarios to us, and they're forcing the tri-chairs to say, you agree with this, right? Tri-chairs say no. So what is happening in Multnomah County and Washington County is similar as what's happening right now in Clackamas County. No, we are not going to submit, but submit a list. The conversations are exactly the same in the other two counties. And so now what we're being asked to do is, do you want a counterproposal? So when Emily came forward and that said, yes, we want a counterproposal, that is huge. That is the biggest step forward we've had since the beginning of this conversation started. We are drafting a counterproposal between the other two counties and Clackamas County to be presented to us. And we're doing it as fast as humanly possible with all of the values and statements that this board has said. And it's going to be presented. But as you can see, Lynn Peterson has this timetable. Oh, we're meeting, today, Emily? And then they're meeting, is it next Tuesday too? Okay, so it's like, wow, it's huge. It's just huge. And Paul, there's been very little paperwork. There's really never been, oh, this is our proposal. It's all been verbal, right, Emily? And then the next week it changes to this. And then the next week this group gets involved, and this group gets involved. And it's probably the worst situation that a county government can be in. Because as you know, here at the county, we do things like this. They're very concrete, they're very real. And we're asking to negotiate this nebulous tax cut that may look like this or may look like this, and a governance model that's been very little structure to it. Oh yeah, and they came back, Lynn Peterson sent out an email last night from Madam. Now the governance model has 11 members, some elected, 7 or 8 elected, 4 that have knowledge, but we don't even know if that's going to be. So it's just constantly changing, and I feel your frustration very, very much.
Well, my point, Chair, is that on what basis are we, as you just said, you said it too, a proposal, a counterproposal, on where do we input? We're the Board of County Commissioners. It's our call to set that criteria. When are we going to be involved? And yet we seem to be doing it without our direction. That's wrong.
Well, actually, no, they do have direction from the board, and it will come back. We have given them direction.
Did I miss a meeting where we set criteria to
I don't know, Paul.
negotiate?
Paul, you and I don't want to fight on this. I mean, the last thing is the commissioners.
I'm not asking for a fight. I'm asking for the answer. Where's the criteria?
Okay. Can you answer that, or no?
I will point to the last issue session. The idea of the counterproposal really was to move the conversation. Adam and I are just showing up to provide information to the people who have to make decisions. Every indication is that Metro is going to move forward. If they do, if it is successful, we just want it to be something that the program could sustain. Based on conversations that we have had with you all, right? You're worried about a fiscal cliff. We're worried about unhousing people or moving people out of housing that's still needed. Priorities like that. But in the last session with Adam, he did review some board priorities for you that we took to the Metro table with your permission. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Things like preserving local decision-making, making intentional changes, making any transitions with adequate time, balancing the system. Those were the priorities that we were using in the last week to look at a counterproposal. So those kind of guiding principles, again, just to provide information about.
I didn't hear the word counterproposal 2 weeks ago.
Right, we were not considering that because we didn't know that Metro would consider a counterproposal.
I'm just saying that the counterproposal, a proposal, is something that we did not discuss, we did not set criteria for. I'm repeating myself, but making my point is that's a game changer. Now we're saying we're negotiating. When you say proposal and the counter, now we're saying we're negotiating. That's different.
Thank you. Commissioner
This
Savas.
is a process issue.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is it's going so very quickly, and the three counties are having to push to be in the driver's seat. I think that's part of the issue. Right now, it's being driven by Metro, nonprofits, and the Portland Chamber. And what I understood at the one meeting I attended was that people are leaving the region and they're losing population. People are moving to Vancouver. They're moving to Idaho. They're getting out of the state because of the feeling that they are overtaxed, and they're actually losing revenue. Hence, as you saw the decrease in money that's coming in. So what you're seeing is a response to basically, now what are we going to do? The money isn't going to come in. People are leaving. Businesses are actually leaving. And so the underlying assumptions of what they proposed and what was passed are no longer valid. And that's what is causing them, in my estimation, to scramble. It's not right. And I was very, very upset when Lynn Peterson actually sat there at the table and told us at that meeting, well, we need to know what you need to cut. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. What authority do you have to tell us that somehow you're asking us and telling us? Is if you have some magic wand as the master of the universe to, mess with something that we have absolutely implemented well. But the point I'm really trying to make, again, I thought that was egregious. I still think it's egregious. I think, again, the worry is that the money's not going to be there anyway. And so my solution would not be to do what they're doing. My solution would be to do what we did, Paul, initially, is start tracking, okay, where the deficits are going to be. Remember, we sat there and we looked every month, we worked with finance, and then based on that, we can decide how to prioritize. We do not need them to do a measure. We do not need them to kind of push this kind of thing forward at this point. What we need to do is an analysis of where the money, how much money we're going to have, and then we, as counties, as the governance, as the people who have the authority with a housing authority and with our professionals with housing, get to choose how we're going to do it and why we're going to do it. This measure, in my estimation, is totally unnecessary. And the other piece of this is that colleagues I've noticed is how they're trying to pick off the cities with somehow. Now, we don't need them. We've already given more money to our cities because we know housing. We're a housing authority. We cooperate with our cities. So taking our authority that we've already proven success and somehow moving it to them to dangle it as a political, like shiny object is also extremely disingenuous, and it really doesn't allow us to do efficiently what we've always done for years in our counties, and that is provide the housing and the services. So that's all I have to say about it. I think part of the issue, Paul, quite frankly, is a counter proposal. There is no there with this group. So it's difficult to do that. But I would suggest that we actually analyze what the funding is looking like now and what's coming in and base anything we do on that and just say hell no to that measure because It is what it is, and I'm sorry people are leaving because they're feeling overtaxed. I could have told them that would happen. I told them this measure would not pass in this county. I was correct. And, and it passed in the other two. Well, good for them, but the consequences we're glad to have the money to do good things, but this is no surprise that the communities north of us are actually leaving the area because what they're feeling is the money isn't really being successfully, as you said many times, Commissioner, implemented. Okay, thank you. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner West?
Just to back what Paul said, I just want to make sure I'm understanding our process correctly about how this has all moved very quickly and a little erratic. There hasn't been, it feels like we're chasing squirrels a little bit. So you guys were going and we had directed you to not tell them what we're going to cut, but what the impact would be. That was a recent meeting that from this dais, in this room. You guys went and started to do that. And then out of nowhere, Lynn Peterson says, would you give me an alternative? Right? Am I right how that went?
No, I offered a counter proposal, and I'm
Just
probably,
the phrase, would you like a counter proposal? Would you be open to it?
Would you
No meat to the
entertain-
bones, just in theory.
Yes.
Would you like a counter proposal?
Would you
Should we go
entertain
back to the board and ask for that?
an alternate scenario.
An alternate
Yes.
scenario, okay. And so probably realizing the polling that they have and that two of the big counties are right now and absolutely not with how they're structuring it, and Multnomah County might be there actually with us too. We'll have to wait to see. Lynn Peterson's like, I need something because this isn't moving forward. Am I understanding that correctly? And so now it's potentially going to come back to this board to say, what does a counter proposal potentially look like? What does that even mean? And we have to come together as a board with your help to figure out the particulars. Am I tracking? Okay. But we're not have we been negotiating, or we've been just trying to stand on principle?
Yeah, President Peterson has been clear, this is not a negotiating table. This is a table of stakeholders to gather information, understand impacts, work out the details of the reform with the understanding that she is going to take something more understood, perhaps, back to her council for final decision.
Okay.
And some of what opened the door for Emily's comment was, Commissioner Savas, to your point, we did a pretty effective job at pointing out the flaw in the math by talking about Clackamas County's budget and that there's been some magical thinking here on not having to make hard choices. What you're contemplating will require hard choices. Here's the evidence that that is real. And that sort of opened the door for a question. So, because there was a moment in the room, oh, thank you for this information. This is really helpful. We haven't heard this articulated in this way. Thank you for providing it so clearly. Kind of now what? And Emily kind of filled the space with, so are you open to a counter proposal?
Okay. And my next question along these lines is it fair to say that they have some assumptions in Metro that we are flush with money and can make these adjustments and still do the big projects that we have planned?
Without question. That has been one of the primary challenges.
I legit have, because we've talked about this, I've looked at it, I have no idea how they're seeing this without it having critical negative impacts on the county's services to the individuals who need these and the infrastructure that we're planning on building. They think we have too much in reserves, right? They think that we have been too cautious with how we've spent the money. Still, that's kind of an underlying assumption. And they don't fully understand kind of the innovative ways that we're building out the system and what that will look like in the next 2 years even. And they think somehow that they can pull back significant resources when we have very innovative and big plans like a recovery campus moving forward. And they think somehow that this money will figure itself out like the term magical thinking is right on, Adam. And then, I don't know, I guess, what's our next steps now that you guys have presented this? Are we know this now? Are we going to put back a counterproposal? I also think it's insane that we're having such a big topic to push to the voters on a non-election year in a off election in a May. And that's just like around the corner. That is crazy pants to me that you're going to have an incredibly low voter turnout. It could be less than 30% to impact something so significant, which you're probably not going to get a true pulse of the entire electorate in this type of an election. So the timing for this is super concerning too. I don't know if I have a counter proposal because we're so far apart, to be honest. I don't know if this board would. It's like, I don't know what the board thinks. I don't know what all the other commissioners think. I don't want to cut the tax. Leave me alone. Give me more autonomy and let me do it the Clackamas County way because it's better than your all's way. Like, it's pretty clear. I don't know if that's a counter proposal, but yeah.
That's basically what I tried to say.
Yeah.
Just, we'll figure it out if there's less money coming in and take it from there. We don't need to.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, good morning. This conversation about modifying or extending the 2020 Supportive Housing Services measure that passed by the vote of the people with the expectation that Metro and the 3 counties would make a significant impact on homelessness with these funds that will most likely amount to some $2 billion or thereabouts by December 31st of 2030. So we had a mission given to us by the people with the expectation of performance by the sunset, 31 December 2030. We had a slow start up with the SHS funds coming in. Then we spent quite a bit of time with infrastructure, nonprofit partnership, and capacity building, as you recall, to enable nonprofits to be geared up to help us with this mission. And now, Metro has introduced this idea to change what the people voted for, try to modify what the people's expectation was. We have here on 31 December this year, 4 years of this 10-year window of opportunity given to us by the people will have been used up. January 1st starts the beginning of the final 6 years on this. Like has been said here, the possibility of the electorate who voted for this in 2020 to vote again to extend it probably has very little chance of flying. So all the time we spend now shifting away from our mission and the end state that we worked on 4 years ago for December 31st, 2030, we are having our attention moved away from the mission. Metro is asking us essentially to consider changing horses in the middle of the stream. My worry is that the more time that Metro and even us in reacting to Metro spend on this idea of modifying the 2020 Supportive Housing Services measure takes us away from critical time, critical staff time, critical effort, and also puts a thought in our partners' thinking that maybe they don't have to focus attention on their processes, the things they do in partnership with the county, to make sure that we meet our end state goals by 31 December 2030. And if we cannot, and if the entire metro area on the 31st day of December 2030 can't look back on the previous 10 years and say, the money we received our work has resulted in this tremendous difference between 2020 and 2030, all of this work will be for nothing. We must focus on the mission we have, the mission we've been given by the people, and not allow Metro wanting to cause us to change horses in the middle of the stream, take us away from focus in being successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding the $50 million less tax revenue, I think we can make assumptions on why that may be true, but is there any way to get an answer from Metro why? It could be incomes are down, capital gains income's down, they have delayed it, diverted it. Residents have moved out of the area, out of the Metro taxing district, which I know that's true in Clackamas County. Businesses of Portland have taken their headquarters and put them elsewhere. And these are all assumptions of why that has happened. And so if you're looking at a $50 million reduced revenue, and then they want to come in and then lower the tax rate, which will even put us at less money, the services will be impacted. Adam, can we find that out?
Absolutely, Chair. Yep. And the Metro economist is Josh Harwood.
Yes.
Has said he'll make himself available to have that conversation.
So can you just ask him and let us know? Can you send us an email this week?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I'm really wondering what we're doing here today. There's no information, there's nothing, there's no packet, there's no numbers. Are there any numbers with regards to what our needs are? As we directed at the last time we discussed, what do we present to Metro for our needs?
We presented the existing SHS budget, our operating costs, and then what those impacts what the new base allocation scenarios would reset our operating costs at. So that is from the packet you received 2 weeks ago. Adam did a nice graph that shows just how severe that cut is, which led to the conversation about this is the first time we're kind of seeing this
Okay.
so clearly.
All right, so the existing budget essentially that we currently have that this board's seen and allocated accordingly, okay?
Yep.
So we got the budgetary financials. We have this issue of a reduction, right? We have the Metros,
Yes.
the issue of a reduction, with no numbers to back that up. We have the issue of them redirecting some of those funds for sticks and bricks, housing, right? We have the issue about governance, right, which we don't know. What other elements of their proposal that we ought to be framework, getting to the framework, just trying to figure out which sticks of this frame, right? What other sticks are there?
Most are included in the two scenarios that, I would say almost all of them, except for the governance. The two scenarios that Metro shared with us encapsulate the cap for the SHS budget, the contribution to cities they're contemplating direct allocation, or some semblance of that, a pot for affordable housing, and then some discretionary dollars potentially for this new governance oversight body.
Well, what I logically like to see, I think is logical, is to have a list of what all those things are and our position on them one by one by one, so that you have something to frame up, right? That's a logical approach, I believe. And I'd like to see us, if this is moving that fast, we ought to be in kind moving that fast as well. Is there anything as far as reporting or measurements? How is this extension of 10 years to 30 years gonna reconcile with the voters and the public? How do we report back in a way that's responsible, or do we just wait for 30 years? Again, I'm not directing this towards you, this is back to Metro. But it seems to me that's one other element of this, is that it takes away that responsible aspect of the citizen saying, how's it going? Are we doing, there's got to be some element of measurement and reporting to the public And consequences, there has to be real consequences because, frankly, this is essentially, it looks to me like, in a way, Metro's raising the white flag and say, we're not going to be successful with this. We're taking your money. Now we're going to redirect it, and we'll get back to you in 30 years. I mean, that's an overall paraphrase. But if I'm someone on the street asking, how's everything going, I'll just tell them, wait for 30 years. We'll find out, right? And I'm not going to apologize for the sarcasm, but this is haphazard. And I don't feel that even today that we have in front of us direction to give you and what those elements are. But I can't think of any. I'm not willing to hand over governance to or dilute that any more than it already is. That's just one person, but I don't know what, do you all feel that way?
We all have been very consistent on the governance model. And, until you have a change, you have asked me to be at the table in these discussions, and I have done that. In my absence, Emily has stepped up for me and has relayed the board's opinions, of all which, Commissioner Savas, you have said today. We are doing the very best we can under extraordinary, difficult circumstances. I think she is explaining, and Adam and all the staff is explaining well what our position is. I don't know what else to do about it. If you want to remove me from my position for the remainder of the year and you step up and do it yourself, I'm happy to step aside.
Well, Chair, that's not my purpose. I want to just point out to two communications that we have sent, if not three, that we've sent to Metro, right? The first one was to Lynn Peterson, to Metro Council, saying, set a table for all of us, taking the load off of you. To me, that was a redirect, right? Yeah. And we got a response back saying,
Nothing.
Well.
Nothing. The response was nothing.
So that was our direction. And the other two communications have been legal. And we got a response back that I saw, which I haven't even been briefed on. I'd like to get briefed on, but I saw it. So Jane, can you fill in, and what, is there validity to what, is it Carrie McLaren, their legal counsel?
So there's really two tracks going here. I've been quiet because you've been talking about one of them. The other one is the legal track, as you mentioned, and that is still chugging along. I briefed the commissioners individually in my meetings. Ours is tomorrow, and then I was going to bring it to executive session next Tuesday. But briefly for today, the track that Emily and Adam are talking about right now is what to do if the funds go away. The track that the legal team is looking at right now is this. It goes to the governance piece, in that the way that this was structured by Metro, this whole situation right now, they kind of rolled into all the changes on the funding. They said, oh, and by the way, we're going to change the governance structure. That's part of the IGA. And that is what we are looking at. That is what we are entitled to mediate, is this change in governance structure. We have reached out to the other two metro counties to find out if they would join us if we did force a mediation. Those conversations are continuing, and I should have more information next week.
So thank you for that. So just a quick follow. As I read that, it seemed to me the theme there was, it was dismissive of our claim in totality. And you're saying not so fast?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Chair, may I?
Yes.
Say something else? So just something else I want to have you all think about. So we're doing the best we can with how fast this information is coming to us. I know it seems haphazard. There's hardly time for us to put together issues, updates, or pull together the information, but you have seen the financial scenarios that Metro has presented. We certainly can come back with the administrator's approval at a different time to review those with you in more detail, what they are contemplating. My instinct to offer something that we could live with was, if you want us to take the position of no, do not do this to us. Our SHS program is successful as is. We do not want any changes, we absolutely can hold that line for you. And frankly, we have been. It was just instinctual that as they were reviewing the graph that Adam had shared with you all a couple of weeks ago that showed the drastic percentage cut to our operating budget, when it was like a light bulb went off to them. And I wanted to capitalize on the moment to tell them there might be something that we could live with, changes that we could live with that wouldn't result in such stark, drastic changes that would result in unhousing people if you gave us more time. And I was just thinking on the fly, if we gave us more time, if we didn't have such a strong proposal for rate reduction, some things that just elements of their proposal that I was considering, I thought if we could give them something we could live with, then it doesn't feel so much like this is happening to us. We can hold the line. We have been holding the line for you. But if you want us to look at something, we're just in the information providing business. That's what I'm hoping we're doing here, is just give more information to make good decisions. But in the absence of it, they don't know what they're choosing, was my fear. And so that was where my instincts went about offering something alternative for them to look at. But we're seeking your direction. We'll always do whatever you want.
Also, we're trying to get the other two counties to come on, and they were very receptive to the question that you posed to Metro. So if the three counties can agree to something moving forward, that is very successful. And that has always been my tact, that the two other counties come along with what Clackamas County wants to do, and we're almost there. It may have taken like forever. We're almost there. Commissioner Savas, you've always brought forward transportation packages where you say, oh, C4 agrees with this or this transportation committee, and we're there. And then you bring it to the board for county commissioners. That is no different than what we're doing with this one. Nobody's acting independently of what the board has not agreed to or desire to have. I think we all pretty much are on the right track, on the same track on this.
Well,
Commissioner West?
I'll just say this, is that I'll tell you that of the county commissioners from the other counties, they're not aware of that.
Well, actually, the chairs are. The chairs are.
See, there we go. There's the fundamental challenge here. Again, this is not directed to you, so please, just be mindful. The fundamental problem here is that if the 15 decision makers, or 12 of them, don't know what's going on, then 12 of them don't know what's going on. They are the voting body, right? And so the very passionate conversation I had late yesterday in Portland with one of the county commissioners from another county was right on the same line, unaware, unhappy, and unaware.
Okay.
So when we say counties, let's be clear, it's not counties.
My direct line is with the chairs. It's up to chairs to communicate with their own commissioners. That's not my responsibility, nor do I have time to do that. By the way, I did send out an email to the Metro councilors asking for feedback on the latest, what was that, Emily? And I got feedback from them, and I will be in conversations with the Metro councilors because there is some angst on this vote going forward. They too realize that this is, a conundrum.
I'd love to be CC'd on that.
Commissioner West.
I know I feel like I've been fully up to date on what's going on with this. I know that I have attended meetings with the chair. We all just testified as an entire board asking Metro to not do this in unison. I don't know what's going on in Washington County. They have their own tensions with Metro regarding this. And I'm not gonna pretend to know what's going on in Multnomah County. So, I feel like that I know what's going on. Staff has been really responsive to me, thank you. It is unfortunate that maybe the majority of commissioners in the metro area outside of Clackamas don't totally know. I always feel like that it's moving quickly and it's a kind of a moving target, so that's challenging and not easy to manage. When we're talking about like approaching this, like, are we gonna put together a counter proposal? My counter proposal, I already know it's gonna be denied because I don't wanna reduce the tax. I want more accountability, and I want more local autonomy. I want here together out of the room as an untrusted partner that has blown up that bridge, at least with Clackamas County, so they're unfit to be in the room. And I think maybe even some of their service providers question their tactics and methods. And I want electeds to be accountable to this, and I want more transparency. So that's a lot of things that Metro isn't doing. Commissioner Savas, you made probably one of the most brilliant points the entire afternoon when you said you are asking the voters to not hold you accountable anymore, and you're waving the white flag when you just make this as long as a mortgage. This measure as long as a mortgage. Because if there's a definite timeline, like Commissioner Schultz said, that you have to achieve the mission, you are really accountable right now, and you have to be urgent. And so what this continues to do is allow the metro area electeds to no longer, or to be less urgent than they have been when dealing with this crisis. And trust me, they haven't been urgent enough. Right? They haven't been urgent enough in helping people get off of fentanyl and off of our streets, and veterans housed, and those that have trauma issues and needs getting the care they deserve and need morally. So what you're asking the voters to say now is, we don't have a moral imperative to deal with this any longer, because we're going to make it so long that we don't have to be responsive to you for 30 years. And that is an unacceptable starting point. So whatever allows us to do what we need to do in Clackamas, the way we've been doing it, and be successful, I want to do that negotiation. I don't have a lot of give for these incompetent local electeds that continue to kick the can and not rise to the occasion before us. So that's my negotiating tactic.
Hey, let's ease up on staff. Look, they're doing as best as they can, commissioners, going forward. So I'm going to end the discussion on this, and we're going to move on. Thank you very much for coming forward. Gary, what's next?
Next, review of your board business meeting this Thursday, December 12, 2024. You have two public hearings. One is a Tri-City Service District boundary annexation. Second is a board order transferring jurisdiction of South Forsyth Road from Clackamas County to the City of Oregon City. You'll also have all the consent agenda items you discussed today. If you have any questions on any of these items, please let me know, and staff will answer it for you prior to Thursday. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Commissioner West.
I will not be here Thursday, colleagues. I'm having surgery. And so I just wanted to make that known. I won't be here at the meeting. I won't be calling in. I know that we're still dealing with a lot of important issues and trying to get them done by the end of the year, but just kind of want to let everybody know where we're at. Had a really, so this might be my last chance to really kind of give my update for the week. I had a really great meeting at C4, the end of year meeting, met with a lot of mayors and other local electeds about what's going on here in the region. It was quite productive. A lot of conversations continuing to move forward around what we just talked about recovery and homelessness issues. And then if I don't see anybody before the end of the year, depending on how this surgery goes, I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Commissioner West, you're invited to Zoom in next week if you're
Okay.
immobile, which you might be.
I might be.
Yes, absolutely. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so tomorrow I have an impact meeting, and last one of the year. And then Friday morning, I'm driving to Salem for the board meeting of the Association of ONC Counties to talk about the future of the BLM managed land in Clackamas County. And I'll let you know the results of that meeting next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I also am going in for surgery on Thursday, just to let you know. So I think we'll hopefully have 3 commissioners here to hold down the fort. If I'm done in time, I will try and call in. But, Ben, I didn't know we'd have surgery at the same time, but there you go. In any case, I did attend the National Association of Counties meeting in Sonoma County, where we had the large urban county caucus together, talking about the issues facing larger counties, as well as the Rural Action Caucus. Those are 2 groups. And one of the things that NACO, National Association, is thinking of doing is maybe trying to get those counties in the middle of it, which would include our county. Usually large urban county caucus is 500,000 or over. We're slightly under that, obviously. And then the Rural Action Caucus is really these extremely smaller counties that have, as you know, we have this in our own state, that have large areas but a smaller population. So they're trying to see if they can get a caucus for that missing middle. And so that's something that we're going to be discussing. I was able to attend two major field trips. One was up above the watershed of the Russian River in Sonoma, where we were looking at their watershed issues and, their water supply and the dam and all those kinds of things, and talking about atmospheric rivers, because that area of the country is being hit by that, causing more landslides and more, adding more disaster management to their portfolio of what they have to do. In the middle of that, we all got our phones dinging because there was I think Eureka had a 6.0, 7.0 earthquake, and so they had to basically shut down all the airports for a tsunami warning. But we were told that since we were above the dam, we would probably be okay, which gave us some level of relief. They realized the tsunami didn't come, so that was a good thing, but it did disrupt all the airline flights while we were down there. The second meeting I went to was, these were actually all bus trips, is we visited all the areas in Santa Rosa and Sonoma that had those major fires. So they are dealing with the same issue we are there. They're dealing with very dry conditions, fires starting, and whole sections of Santa Rosa and Sonoma getting essentially burned. We did a bus trip around that whole area and seeing where the houses were and how now it's all being rebuilt. So in many ways, they have the same issues we do here with disaster management. We also deal with, suddenly these huge rivers of rain that are coming through that cause damage. And also the fire issue. So seeing how they handled those disasters, how they manage it, and what their costs are was I think, a good piece for me to bring back to all of you. I also attended the National Association of Counties board meeting with Danielle Bethel, who is the past president of the Association of Oregon Counties this year. The NACO is doing very well financially. They do have a lot of things to offer us, and I would encourage any of you, when some of these other opportunities come up, to come and join and see what's going on there nationally. So
Thank you.
great, thank you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wish you both on your surgeries or whatever it may be the best, and hope to see you before the holidays. If not, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Wish you the best. Lots of moving things in transportation, a number of things. As you all know, the number of agencies are working towards the legislative session. Yesterday, I attended the Oregon Business Plan Summit. I wasn't going to attend that until I found out last minute that there was going to be the co-chairs of the Transportation Committee were going to have a little session in the afternoon. So I did attend the entire event. And yesterday, the governor was one of the speakers, as well as the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. And the emphasis coming from the governor is still pretty much what's good for Oregon is, Portland is an essential part of what's good for Oregon. So, her emphasis on doing everything she can for Portland is for the benefit of the rest of the state. That said, the conversation was interesting in a large room yesterday with regard to the co-chairs on transportation. There were a number of people, and I haven't been in a room like this in a long time where I heard the word tolling so many times, but people were coming out from other parts of the state and conversations that they should indeed toll us, not them, but us, right, for these projects. So I thought that was quite interesting. And yet the roundtables at the legislative committee or the Joint Committee on Transportation set up around here, all three of which are in this region that I went to, 99.99% of that was not tolling, frankly. It was road user charge or something of that sort. So I was a little bit taken aback by that. And I don't know what the committee is going to do, but I just want to give you advance notice that the co-chairs mentioned yesterday that they're having meetings amongst themselves and working with revenue and trying to get projections of what some of these ideas they have, which they're really not exactly sharing. So the last meeting for this 3 work groups was last Thursday. I sat in that. Our staff have taken notes, as well as others, and the AOC is now, we're having these meetings with AOC to come up with because they've had people on each of these 3 work groups, and we're trying to come up with a uniform response that aligns our position as collaboratively as possible. So just, again, alerting you all to it ain't over. The battle's yet to come, and I keep on hearing people say, that pause the governor put on was temporary.
Yep.
So just so you all know.
Yep. Thank you for that, Paul. Is that it? As you know, Christmas is coming, on a brighter note. And millions and millions of Christmas trees will be harvested and sold this year across America. But did you know that there are only 3 counties in America that produce and provide 61% of the Christmas trees? The 3rd county in America is a county called Misaki in Michigan. The 2nd is Ashe County, North Carolina. And as we know, the top county in America for providing Christmas trees is Clackamas County, Oregon, at 2 million trees a year with a gross revenue of $57 million. Thank you very much to all the Christmas tree growers, of which I used to be one of them. We are no longer, as you know, we do hazelnuts. And I'm sure hazelnuts will be rising up as we go forward. So with that in mind, enjoy your Christmas tree from Clackamas County, Oregon. Thank you very much. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.